Right now on True Crime Files Unsolved, a couple ambushed in front of their North County home. What neighbors reported seeing before the shooting. Plus, a young girl found dead in Poway. What her father has to say about how the investigation was handled, and details on a potential person of interest. And families still looking for answers after two teens on a night out with friends were shot and killed on a local highway. Welcome to True Crime Files Unsolved. I'm Carlo Cicchetto. Here at CBS 8, we're working to help investigators solve cold case murders. These aren't just crime stories, they're haunting echoes of lives cut short and mysteries left unsolved. Together, we'll revisit these forgotten cases and perhaps, with your help, uncover the truth. We begin with an ambush murder that rocked a quiet coastal neighborhood back in 2006. We talked to the cold case detective working the murder of Sibyl Robbins. He promises he won't stop working until they find her killer. Bel Air Terrace in Encinitas, a neighborhood like something out of a movie, beautiful and peaceful. You can count 911 calls for a year on a single hand. But underneath the idyllic exterior is a dark mystery. May 12th, 2006. What happened that night here?
So approximately 10:30 at night, Mr. Harrison Robbins and Miss Sibyl Robbins were arriving home after they were eating dinner, and they had actually gone to the synagogue that night as well. Dr.
Harrison and Sibyl Robbins were by all appearances a couple as perfect as the neighborhood.
As they pulled into the driveway here, Mr. Robbins said that he heard popping noises immediately as they parked. He turned to look at his wife, and he saw that she was shot in the head.
Sibyl Robbins was dead, and Harrison Robbins had been shot in the hand and face. Neighbors rushed from their homes to help him.
This is a quiet neighborhood in a cul-de-sac, and just the way in which this was perpetrated was very strange. This couple came home from a quiet evening together, and they were what seemed like ambushed in their driveway.
San Diego Sheriff's homicide detective Brent Spencer is the lead investigator in the Robbins cold case, working it for the last couple of years. He says there are 10 folders like this one in the case file.
We looked at every individual that was in and out of their life, including clients from his business, including friends, family, and leads were followed, but they didn't lead to a resolution.
There are many details he can't release to the public, like the type of gun used, but he did tell us about a possible getaway vehicle, a dark van that neighbors saw speeding away after the shooting. And you said the van, it appears, had been there previous nights, perhaps casing the neighborhood, studying?
So we spoke with neighbors, and one of the neighbors described what seemed like a van coming through the neighborhood and looking at each resident, slowing and stopping, and finally leaving the area. And this is before the incident at the house.
This doesn't sound like a random crime at all.
We don't foresee it being a robbery or an argument, but we can't say for sure.
Neighbors say Dr. Robbins lived in the house until his death in 2019. He often talked about his late wife and the night she was taken from him. Meanwhile, Detective Spencer is hopeful that advancements in DNA testing may help investigators finally find the killer.
Nothing will stop us from moving forward on this case.
In September of 1974, 7-year-old Patty Kuzara was walking back home from a friend's house in Poway, but she never arrived. Her body was found the next day. Now there's a person of interest that could unlock the mystery of who killed Patty Lee Kuzara. A line of sheriff's deputies scours an open field in Poway in early October of 1974, searching for any more clues missed in the brutal murder of 7-year-old Patty Kuzara. Patty was walking home from her babysitter's house on the evening of September 28th, but never made it past this open field near Hillary Place and Community Road. The crime shook the quiet community to the core, as CBS 8's Greg Lefebvre reported.
Emotions are running high in Poway this week, authorities say, with more parents checking on the whereabouts of their children and checking more often.
Patty Kuzara's body was found in this empty lot, and investigators say there was a sexual component to the crime. The killer was never found.
I was walking around the fog for a couple of years. I literally was, but now it's just buried in the past somewhere.
Patty's father, Dennis, talked to us about the case on Zoom from his home in Tennessee. He remembers how the murder weapon was found days after Patty's body was discovered.
We feel that possibly this murder weapon was picked up by a child or some other person walking through the field and subsequently disposed of.
Investigators initially working the crime scene missed the 3-foot steel post from a nearby barricade. They followed up with this massive ground search about a week later. Dennis Kuzara was frustrated at the time by how the investigation was handled.
It was just a whole comedy of errors. It wasn't a comedy, it was a tragedy of errors, actually.
Today, Poway looks more city than country. The then empty lot is now a shopping center.
With their hands.
We met up with San Diego Sheriff's cold case detective Brent Spencer in a nearby open lot, similar to where Patty was found.
What were the first thoughts that investigators had? Where did their investigation lead them to start?
They looked locally. This seemed like a crime committed by an individual who knew the area.
Spencer tells us it was a particularly brutal crime.
Patricia wasn't just struck once, she was struck multiple times with an iron and wood post to the point that this was almost overkill in the sense of who did this to her. It was perpetrated extremely violently, and she must have been extremely fearful to have walked through that field in an area that she's not used to just to get away from this individual.
As to who did it, investigators do have a person of interest who had been described as a possible witness to the crime in the weeks after it happened. A teenage boy with long blonde hair seen riding a yellow 10-speed bike in the area around the time Patty was murdered.
What I can tell you is he was a resident of Poway. He knew the area. He did go to high school here at that point. He was seen that night in that area, and he did confirm that.
There seems to be a misunderstanding between Dennis Kuzara and the Sheriff's Department. He says he was told in recent years that the boy on the bike was the killer, but Detective Spencer says that's still to be determined. Spencer hopes that they will eventually be able to develop DNA evidence that will either identify or eliminate that boy on the bike as the killer. He wants justice for Patty.
She's forever a 7-year-old girl who had her life taken from her.
For Dennis Kuzara, finding Patty's killer would help him close the door on the past for good, rather than burying his memories and emotions.
It's been so long, it's more like a bad dream than anything else. I would like to have some closure on it.
As for the boy on the bike, detectives tell us he's dead. He passed away in recent years, but they're still working to clarify his role, if any, in Patty Kuzara's murder. Now we turn to a murder on a local highway. Families are still seeking answers after 2 popular Lincoln High School students on a night out with friends were gunned down in a car on a local highway. This happened in March of 2008 and has left a lasting impact on an entire community.
It started as an innocent night out for teenage friends, heading to Brunswick Lane's bowling alley in Chula Vista. It ended with gunfire and a crash, leaving a community in mourning.
And to get a phone call 3 hours later to tell me one of my best friends was gone, it's like it took a piece out of me.
On March 16th, 2008, 15-year-old Donnell Davis and 16-year-old Brandon Johnson rode with a couple of friends to the bowling alley. When they got to Brunswick Lanes, they found out the group they were there to meet was gone. The manager reportedly told them that their friends got into a fight with another group of teens, and all of them were kicked out.
Turned away from Brunswick Lanes in Chula Vista, Donnell and Brandon, they got into a car with their friends and we're heading to a different bowling alley in El Cajon. On the freeway, someone in the car said they thought someone was following them. Then on the 54, just east of Briarwood, somebody pulled alongside the driver's side and opened fire.
The car comes up beside them and they start getting shot. The driver's hit, Donnell and Brandon are hit, and then the driver loses control of the car and rolls, and a couple kids are ejected. But even with that, the medical examiner said they would have survived the crash, that it was the gunshot wounds that killed them.
Sergeant Tim Chandler heads up the San Diego County Sheriff's Cold Case Unit. He says Davis and Johnson had no reason to think they were in any kind of danger that night, and they may have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time.
So it may have been gang motivated and misidentification?
That's sort of what we think. That's a distinct possibility. And that's not that uncommon. A lot of times, if one gang feels they've been disrespected, they will simply target somebody they think might be in that gang.
Detectives scoured the freeway the night of the shooting and into the next day, looking for any evidence. It's been more than 16 years, and even with a $50,000 reward out for information, investigators have no answers.
How frustrating is it to see, two young boys just taken for no reason?
Oh, that's very frustrating, because it's, sometimes you can say, well, if this person wasn't doing, involved in this or involved in that. Well, these are two young kids, 4 really, that were doing whatever any normal teenager would do, and going out, trying to meet some friends. And for the parents, it's heartbreaking because there's no explanation. There's no why did this happen? And right now there's no satisfaction because we haven't arrested anybody. It never goes away.
That heartbreak is very real. CBS 8 reached out to family members for this story. They didn't want to be interviewed and are still understandably frustrated, hurt, and angry. Next, decades after the murder of a young woman, a break in the case. We'll tell you about the investigation into Michelle Wyatt's death and how detectives tracked down their suspect. Plus, a mother's relentless search for her daughter's killer, how she found him years after he went out on the run. In 1980, a college student's murder sent shockwaves through the community of Santee and all of San Diego. The crime left detectives grappling with an unsolved mystery for years. Now, cold case detectives are opening their files to CBS 8 to show us the breakthrough that ultimately identified the killer. Michelle Wyatt was a vibrant 20-year-old college student who worked in a grocery store.
And her boyfriend, Patrick, was over that night. Through the evening, they were playing billiards or pool in the garage here. She had a pool table set up. Patrick had to work the next day, so he didn't really want to stay the night. He didn't want to have to get up early and get ready here, so he went home.
Her roommate came home to the complex just off Magnolia Avenue in Santee the next day.
Saw the newspaper on the doorstep. It was odd. Door was open. She went in and saw Michelle lying there in the living room.
Michelle had been brutally raped and murdered in a crime that rocked the East County in October of 1980 and stayed a mystery for decades.
Investigators came back out to this condo complex in 2000, still searching for answers. They thought maybe one of Michelle's neighbors could have been the killer. Turns out they were on the right track.
They identified almost everybody that ever lived in this apartment complex at that time, with the exception of a couple condominiums, and one of those was the one he lived in.
He was Michelle Wyatt's killer.
So this is where we keep our cold case files.
Sergeant Tim Chandler heads the San Diego Sheriff's Cold Case Unit, 5 detectives and 2 analysts. There are about 400 files in this room, some dating back a century.
You can't work homicide without having a passion for solving these crimes. There's no bigger crime. And then, once you're here and you see what's done to people, people have to answer for that.
In the last decade, new DNA technology called investigative genetic genealogy has helped the San Diego Sheriff's Cold Case Unit solve 6 murders. The process includes uploading suspect DNA to public websites like Ancestry.com and creating a profile that is then uploaded again into those websites.
If we have DNA at the scene, our victim's DNA or suspect DNA, we will take that and build a family tree to try and identify our suspect or our victim if they're unknown.
From there, they might reach out to relatives of their suspect in their search for answers.
As much as they don't want their loved one or their family member to be responsible for a murder, it's amazing how they do help.
As a kid, Detective Patterson delivered newspapers to Michelle Wyatt's condo complex. That's one of several coincidences that made the case feel close to him.
To this day, I still hang out with my friends that I've known all my life. And it's just, having someone killed in Santee like that, just, I don't want to say gave me more motivation, it just hit home.
Patterson and his team found Michelle's killer using IgG. He had slipped right under investigators' radar.
Later on in the investigation, we discovered that John Patrick Hogan, the person that killed her, actually lived down around by the pool here at one point. I don't believe he was living here at the time he killed her.
But John Patrick Hogan would never answer for Michelle's murder. He died of a drug overdose on October 9th, 2004. That's exactly 24 years to the day after Michelle was killed. For Michelle's parents, who we interviewed in 2021, the news the crime was solved was welcome, but brought little comfort.
Still a numb feeling that she's not with us.
That was my biggest scare, of dying and not finding out who did it. At least now I know, that this guy's not out there anymore.
For a deeper dive into this story, you can click on the web version of it at cbs8.com/truecrime. You'll also find other stories like this, including a look back at the summer of 1976. 3 children disappeared from San Diego County sidewalks, all within 20 miles of each other. We'll show you why detectives are revisiting these cases nearly 50 years later. Our next story takes us to Lemon Grove and the mystery around the murder of Dale Wheeler. He grew up in the area, and he would go back and forth from staying in his family's home to sleeping on the streets. He would often be seen collecting cans and walking around the neighborhoods. In the early morning hours of November 16th, 2014, Wheeler can be seen in this surveillance video visiting an AM/PM. Then, hours later, people reported hearing gunshots. Wheeler's body was found early the next morning next to nearby trolley tracks on Lemon Grove Avenue near Palm Street.
Wheeler was found right along the fence line there on this side. He'd been shot multiple times. It looked like there may have been some sort of physical confrontation before that, but we're really not sure.
What makes you think that there may have been a physical confrontation?
Just the way the crime scene was. He was collecting cans. The cans were spread about. Looked like there'd been a lot of footprints in the area.
Wheeler's family would not talk to us about the murder, but neighbors described him as a nice, caring, and quiet man, and detectives say they are committed to finding Dale Wheeler's killer. Coming up next, a young mother murdered and her new boyfriend on the run. When we return, we hear from the victim's mother about how she tracked down her daughter's alleged killer. A couple's trip to San Diego ends in murder and mystery, with a young mother dead and her new boyfriend missing. In this true crime report, how Crystal Mitchell's mother took matters into her own hands to track down the man police believe brutally killed her daughter.
She was a beautiful, rambunctious young lady. She was ambitious, she was a self-starter, she was a great mom, and just a great daughter.
Josephine Wenzel is talking about her late daughter, Crystal Mitchell, a single mom of 2. She was only 30 years old when she was killed on a trip from Phoenix to San Diego back in 2016 with her new boyfriend.
She said that he was a good man, he was in the Marines, His family was established in Scottsdale. There was no red flag, you know.
But that new boyfriend, Raymond McLeod, had a dark side. A heavy drinker with a history of domestic violence.
Knowing my daughter, she would not tolerate that type of behavior. And she didn't know him enough. So if she saw his behavior at the club, let's say, she would have escaped that. She would not be in that relationship whatsoever.
On June 10th of 2016, the couple came to this Allied Gardens bar. They were kicked out after Raymond reportedly slapped Crystal during an argument and then got into a fight with someone who tried to stop him. Crystal's body was discovered the following morning at this apartment complex off Mission Gorge Road. Police say there was a trail of blood from an elevator to the apartment the couple was staying in. McLeod, the prime suspect in Crystal's murder, was nowhere to be found. Police say the next morning he called his ex-wife to say he would miss his son's birthday, rented a car at the San Diego airport, and disappeared. That car would be found days later in Mazatlan, Mexico. The search for McLeod soon went silent. That's when Josephine Wenzel, a former police officer, went to work.
When I contacted the police and I asked them, is somebody looking for him? They said, well, you know, we communicate with our, allies out there and stuff. But there was no boots on the ground, nobody handing out flyers is what I thought. Maybe they were looking for him.
So what did you do next?
I took to social media and I started just pounding the pavement through, virtually.
It took years to track McLeod and too many hours spent online to count.
I can't, because I would wake up at all times of day and night. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and I'd start my mission and go to bed at 12, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. I just did it when I could.
Josephine even took classes on how to use social media and the internet to find a fugitive. She tracked McLeod from Mazatlan to Belize.
I started putting out ads for, wanted posters and stuff, and then just everybody started contacting me left and right. But it also scared him out of the country. And then when he found out that I was on to him into Guatemala, he fled from there as well. He had a paid watcher. These kind of guys, they pay people to watch out for these kind of things, and it could be people that are in law enforcement.
In August of 2022, one of the many ads Wenzel put on the internet finally paid off. That ad led to a tip to the U.S. Marshals, who captured Raymond McLeod in Sonsonate, El Salvador. Turns out the suspected killer had been teaching English under the name Jack Donovan. We talked to one of his students after his arrest.
I remember he told me he's from Canada. Also, his name was Jack, just Jack. He never looks nervous, normal life. I never thought he was a criminal person.
After her years-long search, Wenzel was stunned by the news that her daughter's alleged killer was finally in custody.
I just cried. I didn't know how to react. I just cried tears of joy that it was over. That part was over. But it wasn't like a satisfaction, because you have a great loss, It's like, okay, so it paid off. So we caught the rat. So, okay, now we start the court process.
McLeod's attorney declined comment for this story, and as we record this, he has yet to go to trial. Meanwhile, Josephine Wenzel is using her experience to help other families with murdered or missing loved ones. She started a nonprofit, and you can find her online at angelsofjustice.org. And we want to share this information with you as well. If you have any information that can help detectives in any of these investigations, you are encouraged to contact the San Diego County Sheriff's Office Homicide Unit. Their phone number is 858-285-6330. You can also email them at sdso.homicide@sdsheriff.org. That's going to do it for this True Crime Files special. Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can get all of our special coverage, live broadcasts, weather, breaking news, and more on our streaming channel. Just add the CBS 8 Plus app to your Apple TV, Roku, or Fire TV. We'll see you next time.